Evening all, it's George from Ireland. So this video is about Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex, who's commonly called Meghan Markle, and the letter that was sent to her only 2 days ago by 72 female politicians. Are we allowed to say female in these transgender times? I don't know. Female persons? Those who are channeling the female gender at the moment, if you're very woke, that is. Anyway, so, and they addressed her as Dear Madam rather than Your Royal Highness. I mean, for goodness sake. I'll quote sections of it. Signed by 72 parliamentarians, all of them women, overwhelmingly Labour, few Lib Dem, SNP. There was at least one Conservative Member of Parliament who signed it as well. And so this is what they're doing. We wanted to express our solidarity with you in taking stand against the often distasteful and misleading nature of stories printed in a number of national newspapers concerning you, your character, and your family. So you may know that perhaps a month ago, Her Royal Highness and her husband, His Royal Highness, the Duke of Sussex, Prince Harry, they initiated legal action against a certain newspaper. I think it's the Daily Mail group. Well, in particular because the Daily Mail, or was it the Sunday Mail, the stablemate, published excerpts from a letter which Meghan Markle had sent to her father. Now, her pater leaked it to the press. Now, I don't know the law on this, whether that's still considered an invasion of privacy, because it didn't come into their hands through subterfuge or theft or anything like that. It was not blagging, not hacking as of old. Now, that's a different issue. Prince Harry was hacked several times over 10 years ago, and that was illegal at the time, and people even went to prison about that, but he's taking some legal action over that, which I approve of him doing that. Meghan, I don't know if she's on strong legal ground in this legal action concerning the leaked letter. She might be, but you know, then again, government documents, also documents are leaked all the time, like WikiLeaks, and that's, unless it's like to do with national security, that's not a crime. Is it a civil wrong? I mean, sorry, she's not alleging it's a crime, but is it a civil wrong? Possibly it is. Anyhow, we wouldn't have much journalism if it wasn't for leaks telling us what's really going on. But, you know, if you live by the media, you'll die by the media. If you go into the public spotlight, then unpalatable things will be said about you. You can't control the media and insist that people solely provide you with entirely flattering coverage, and she and Prince Harry seem to be outraged by the very concept of a free press and demand that they should receive entirely laudatory coverage as no more than their due. Now, nobody else demands that, much less receives it. I know the royal family are very privileged, but really sure this is one step too far. So they seem to consider even reasoned criticism of them lèse majesté. Are we in Thailand or something? My goodness. So, distasteful things, all right, in the newspapers or on television channels or anything like that, I'm not sure if I've seen anything that's distasteful. She's been firmly criticised, often justly, but misleading stories. What are the misleading stories? I don't know. Perhaps some of them are misleading. Please tell me some. There are some kooks on the internet who say ridiculous things about her, that she's some sort of liberal left plant, or she was married twice before, not just once before, when they were providing no evidence whatsoever, or that she's had several abortions. I've no idea whether that's true or not, sort of unfalsifiable unless you have her medical records. And that there is some racist diatribe against her on the internet. But as I say, I've not seen that in any newspapers or television channels. If it's there, please draw my attention to it. I could be mistaken. No, I don't pretend to have read every single newspaper article published in the United Kingdom over the last 3 years or so since she became part of the British scene. Obviously, she was well known in the UK before she got married. No, nor have I seen every single television broadcast. But to my knowledge, there's been no racist tenor to any of these things, or there've been no falsehoods published about her personality. Okay, not everyone's going to like your personality. She's a fairly controversial person, had her enemies in Hollywood long before she was involved with Prince Harry. There are celebrities there who absolutely abominate her, but that's obviously the way the thespian world goes. And so what another point is, if you're going to be glorified, you must also be vilified, okay? You should be proud to be hated by the right sort of people. You must be doing something right. Some people I think whom I consider detestable. If they praised me, that would be a Judas kiss. I would not want to be endorsed by them. Anyway, On occasion, stories and headlines have represented an invasion of your privacy. Okay, I wish they substantiated that. So which ones? Now, the letter to a father, there's an arguable case there. And actually, it's been established that even the royalty have some degree of privacy. We don't have much of a right to privacy in the UK, and in France it's more extensive. To cast aspersions on your character without good reason, as far as we can see. Ooh, so there's the hedge, as far as we can see, because there might be a good reason, but they can't perceive it just yet. Anyway, I wonder what these aspersions on a character were. It's actually a rather brief letter. They should have furnished particulars, but maybe that was just reopening old wounds. Even more concerning still, we're calling what can be only described as outdated colonial undertones to some of these stories. I don't know of any colonial undertones to them. Tell me. It could be wrong, right? So she's American, yes. She's come to the United Kingdom, so things are a bit different in the United States. She doesn't know that much about the UK beforehand, as she freely acknowledged when she was interviewed several years ago before her romantic liaison with the prince. Though I can't remember which chat show she was on, and she didn't understand many Britishisms, which is not a criticism of her. That's just the way it is. Understandably, it's unsurprisingly. Now she's become more familiar with it. I'm not one of these people who really insists on integrating. You have to assimilate and be exactly like the typical British person, whoever that is. She can be herself. There's a certain royal etiquette to be followed. They visit these impoverished, disease-ridden, crime-afflicted townships on Earth, and so whine about how hard their own life is enough to make me puke. Well, I had the same feeling about Prince Harry. He seems to have suffered from all his mother's sort of psychological flaws and debilities. That she would go to Angola, countries like that. She'd meet children who had all their limbs blown off by a landmine. She'd meet children who were born HIV positive, were dying of AIDS before they reached the age of 10. And she felt sorry for herself. It's nauseating. It just beggars belief. I'm staggered. Wouldn't that put your travails in perspective? I could be a lot worse off. I'll tell you what I do. When I get down in the dumps and I'm wallowing in misery, this is the way I pull myself out of it. I say, think of it. Here I am at night brooding over my sorrows. I have a roof over my head, okay? I'm in a clean, warm, dry place. I've had enough to eat. I've got money in the bank. I've got qualifications. I live in one of the wealthiest countries in the world. I've got a family that loves me. I'm in rude health. I have friends. I've achieved a few things. You know, my situation could get better, and there's a lot I could do about it. So really, count your blessings. It could be far, far worse, okay? Stop this feeling so sorry for yourself and constant moaning, malingering. Pull yourself together. How on earth did Harry ever get through Sandhurst if he lacks the mental toughness to take this? And anyway, I don't know what's colonial about it. Yes, she's American, okay? That's it, all right? Is it something to do because she's got some distant African ancestry, because her family, well, some of her ancestors were kidnapped and treated with great brutality, brought across the Atlantic, and that will have been, you know, certainly before 1808, when the transatlantic slave trade was outlawed by the United States. It could have been 100 years before that. It could have been 100 years before that. I don't know. So outdated. I don't know what's a little bit outdated. They said, okay, she shouldn't stray into the political arena. I'm not sure what she's been criticized for. Sometimes touching Prince Harry in public. Anything else? Some people think that she's too full of herself. She's the first actress married to the royal family. Is that outdated to say that's a first? I mean, everything's got to be a first once. What else is the fact that she's, okay, the oldest royal bride for a first-time marriage, as in it was Prince Harry's first marriage, not hers. Yes, Prince Charles married Camilla Parker Bowles in 2005, but it was a second marriage for both of them. Anything else unusual? Well, she hadn't had children before. Was she capable of having children? Didn't matter that much. Was that outdated? There wasn't much speculation about that. What do you think Harry Potter's former colleagues think of this blubbering? You know, soldiers are now homeless and suffering post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, exactly. Get over yourself. Pull yourself together. Man up, okay? You saw people get killed in Afghanistan. Some of his comrades in arms, they either got killed or they left their balls behind in Helmand province. And all he can do is whinge about, you know, these stories. Sticks and bones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. How about that? Because the thing is, at Sandhurst, they've got to be verbally abused. And you've got to take that, have some psychological toughness. You're going to cry when anyone says boo to you. Well, Prince Harry was more sensible. Well, his father, the Prince of Wales, sometimes foolish, but he has a few bon mots. I remember seeing in an interview that Prince Harry gave several years ago, I think it was to CNN, he says, don't read the newspapers, that's what my dad always says. And Paul Burrell, Princess Diana's butler, he said it again only days ago on Loose Women, that when he was in the 80s, the Prince of Wales said, right, we're not taking any more newspapers here. Were they living in Kensington Palace at the time? I don't remember. And if the Princess of Wales, that was Diana, if she wants a newspaper, she has to go and buy one herself, okay? If you're not going to like it, don't read it. If I know someone's written a poison pen letter about me, I don't read it. Some of these kook comments, what's the point? Life's too short. Why are you, wasting time going out of your way to try to be offended? Ignore it, move on. Just rise above it, have some dignity. Whatever happened to the stiff upper lip, okay? People say things which you find a trifle disobliging. Well, you're going to have to get over it. You need to be a bit more mettlesome. Grow a thick skin. So they're a little bit too touchy. Now, I agree there is some crazy and toxic stuff on the internet, but actually in the newspapers or the television channels, so far as I've seen, there's nothing of that nature. There were some reasoned criticisms about their rank hypocrisy on saying, oh, we got to do something about climate change. It's an urgent issue. Everybody has to make serious sacrifices, except us. And we're going to take a private jet to Nice. And then these spurious claims that was for security reasons. So they wouldn't speak up, do it directly. They realized that'd be inapposite, that would go down badly. So they had their friends do it, their allies. Was it Misha Nunu or someone like that? I can't remember. Someone or other, Jamila Jamal, as proxies for them. They were clearly doing this as sort of mercenaries on behalf of their Royal Highnesses. Anyway, as women, members of Parliament from all backgrounds, we stand with you in saying it cannot be allowed to go unchallenged. All right, so you can issue press statements to fight back. Usually, the royal family maintains a dignified silence on this. Whatever happened to regal impassivity? All sorts of crazies and kooks can latch on to you, develop their fixations. It's a sort of very common psychiatric weakness. In any psychiatric hospital, you'd find plenty of kings and queens, or those who developed a deeply unhealthy fixation with members of royalty. These flunkies, these hangers-on, the people sucking up to them, like Alexander Gilkes. Well, what do you expect? But I think, you're just making people talk about even more. Learn from your mistakes. Take some decent public relations advice. They must be disregarding the PR advice. And Prince Harry acknowledged as much in his letter when he indicated his decision to take legal action against a certain newspaper, saying this may not be a wise course, but it's certainly the right course. Yeah, well, it is unwise, and this chap is known for his unwisdom. So the letter continues. Although we find ourselves being women in public life in a very different way to you, we share an understanding of the abuse and intimidation, which is now so often used as a means of disparaging women in public office from getting on with our important work. Well, I don't think there's any intimidation. I mean, there are often assassination threats against members of the royal family. I'm not aware of any. Obviously, that would be ghastly. I don't want that at all. I don't want the least act of violence against her or to be threatened with or anything like that. So what she should be subjected to is, as I said, fulsome criticism as well as fulsome praise. Okay, she's got her fans, they're her supporters, so she's attracted some fervent admiration. Now, even me, little me, a nobody, I get strong criticism, some of it justified, and something insulting things like that, occasionally even threatening things said. I want to shoot you in the face 1,000 times. That's precisely what somebody said to me. There's a comment on one of my YouTube videos. So I have to take it, and I don't get the huge privilege. I don't get millions of pounds from the taxpayer each year to live in palaces, and they get this adulation. And when they go to another country, they roll out the red carpet. They get this outstanding treatment. They get to meet all sorts of fascinating and important people that an ordinary person wouldn't get to meet. But the price you pay is you will be scrutinized, and you will be held to high standards. And really, they've got themselves in trouble by taking up a somewhat contentious cause and then showing flagrant hypocrisy. All right, Prince William, he's played it safe. What's his pet cause? It's endangered species. We don't want elephants and rhinos to go extinct. I don't know of a single person who wants the rhinoceros to be wiped out. Whereas climate change, there is some pushback. Some people disagree. There's some debate over how to handle it. If Prince William said, let's save the rhinoceros, and went out and shot a rhinoceros, yeah, he would get his bum smacked by the press. And Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have done the equivalent of, in the purplest of prose, embracing this cause with relish. And then I think the very next week, completely demolishing the case they'd made, saying, do as I say, not as I do. They don't practice what they preach. Lead by example, okay? If you really care about the environment, Your Royal Highness, raise your child in a small one-bedroom flat. I've done it. And then you would be saving on the electricity bill. There'd be less of a carbon footprint. But you don't believe that. Sacrifices are for other people, poorer people, frankly, to make. And the trouble is, it's done a great disservice to the cause of climate change, something I firmly believe in, by allowing people to take the spotlight off what's happening to the planet, what needs to be done, and onto celebrity, hypocrisy, this lovey-dum, this self-indulgence, this drivel, this grandstanding, this moralistic posturing. So anyway, she's not in public office, which is still gets wrong. I mean, I know she's a member of the royal family. It's not public office. She's not elected to something. Yes, she's got some sort of public role, but all right, perhaps I'm splitting hairs by saying it's wrong to allude to it as public office. Okay, I shall carry on quoting from the said epistle. With this in mind, we expect the national media to have the integrity to know when a story is in the national interest and when it is seeking to tear a woman down for no apparent reason. You have our assurances that we stand with you in solidarity on this. We will use the means at our disposal to ensure the press accept your right to privacy and show respect, and that the stories reflect the truth. Well, what means do you have at your disposal? At the moment, none. There is a press complaints commission. That's a voluntary thing. It was set up in the late 90s when the press were told they're dining in the Last Chance Saloon. So there's this press code of conduct that newspapers and I think television stations and radio stations sign up to voluntarily. They don't have to. Having said that, I don't know a single media outlet that's not signed up to it. And that if a complaint is made, the Press Complaints Commission might eventually say, you have to pay such and such an amount of money. And again, it's not enforceable. They could say, we're not paying. But again, I'm not aware of any time a media outlet has refused to pay. So they thought, should we legislate for it? About 9 years ago, it was a big deal in the wake of the hacking scandal. And the News of the World went bust over that. Should they regulate it with statutory underpinning? Chuka Uman was calling for this. People said this is a slippery slope. We can then get into state control of the media and what you're allowed to say, what you're not allowed to say. Now, we already have, you're not allowed incitement to violence. It's been around for centuries. Incitement to racial hatred, incitement to religious hatred. Anything that causes fear, distress, or alarm, I suppose. Some of the stories about her would largely cause distress, but I really don't think that PC Plod is going to be feeling the collar of any journo for saying something which is disobliging about Her Royal Highness. And much though I disagree with some of what she says and does, she's not evil. She's not an awful person. She has her virtues and her gifts, all right? And if I met her, I would greet her in the apposite manner. I would shake her hand and I would bow to her from the neck and I would address her as Her Royal Highness. Anyway, the thing is, they would have been much better off if they didn't air their views. The royals have many gaffes and embarrassing blunders. They're not such stoic individuals like QE2. I recall It's a Knockout was such a thing in the 21st century. I remember It's a Royal Knockout, that sort of game show in the 1980s. Members of the royal family doing these physical games like, I don't know, hitting a ball and running here and there and jumping over things to raise money for charity. Was that Prince Edward's idea? Because he's quite into media, the artistic one of the family. And Fergie, she's commonly known the Duchess of York, she was involved. But they used to be more dignified, be more distant. With only the top half of the face visible on the screen, you look like a foo. All right. I think most of my face is visible. What was I going to say? Oh, okay, I get it. Oh, you're using that Northern Englishism for the female generative organ, tar muchly. So you see the abuse. I'm not going to go whining, say, oh, change the law or something like that. So what can MPs do? They can pressurize people. They can try and send a newspaper to moral Coventry, refuse to give interviews, or legislate. I really hope they don't legislate. So the media don't have to publish things that are in the national interest. They publish things which just inform the public, entertain the public, and that's it really. They need to sell newspapers, and some of them are scandal rags, and selling newspapers. Well, you sell them more than being rude than being polite. Saying the princess did something good today. She's nice and uncontroversial. That's not as eye-catching as saying or something bad about her. She did something shocking, and we should dislike her. I wish I could remember who said it. The British public love a good hate and a good something else. I can't remember what it is. A good scandal, or which judge was it said? There's nothing so ridiculous as the British public in one of its fits of self-righteousness. And perhaps there's one of those over the whole climate change thing. Well, her behaviour on the issue. Tear her down for no apparent reason. Well, they critique her for some of her behaviour. Anyway, it's not that bad. Writing messages on fruit for prostitutes. Okay, care packages. These are people who have some fairly tough lives, expressing some compassion for them, not a bad thing. And being a prostitute's an entirely respectable thing. And they're not necessarily all unhappy. They're not necessarily all drug addicts or addled. They could be reasonably happy, not unhappy doing it. It's a job with its pros and cons. I used to know you in Oxford in 2004. See you again. Fiona Softly, hello. You're the librarian from the Oxford Union Society. The Dundonian who spent some time in Canada. I remember everything. I wonder where you are now. So what else about Her Royal Highness? There was on solidarity, right? They feel solidarity for her. And, some MPs have got some horrid things said to them, like Jessica Phillips. Not my favourite MP by a long shot, but she's been on the receiving end of some truly horrid missives and all sorts of threats to rape her and things like that. Now, that really is despicable, and obviously been prosecuting some of that. That's fair. Saying some things which are unpleasant and distasteful about Her Royal Highness, that's rather a different story. Anything else to add about this letter? What was it a gaffe? Is it going to backfire? Just possibly draw even more attention to the hostility towards her. The thing is, the royal family is supposed to be unifying figures, not polarizing ones. Now, they're always a little bit contentious because not everyone approves of the royal family. At least 20% of people are anti-monarchists. About 70% are monarchists. 10% maybe not sure, dependent opinion poll. Now, younger people are more likely to be anti-monarchists than older people. As people grow older, they tend to become monarchists, okay? But it's not necessarily going to happen that way. And she was thought to appeal to Diouf particularly. So what they should have done is kept their mouths closed on a lot of issues. Stay stum, right? Her Britannic Majesty, what is her view on climate change, or the death penalty, or social justice, or even endangered species, or really any topic you care to mention? I don't know, all right? I don't know, and that's a good thing. And you can imagine she's on your side if you wish. If you knew everything about someone, you'd surely find an aspect of that person you disliked. Their opinions on this and that, their past behavior. So full disclosure is a huge mistake, and that's why they don't do it. I think it was Badgett who wrote to the royal family, don't let too much daylight in on the magic because you'll spoil it. The mystique should maintain a certain reserve and be lofty and distant and could be admired by the royal family's subjects. So I wonder if this is drawing it somewhat into the political arena, as almost everyone who signed this letter, they were all on the liberal left side, and the idea of women signing it, so only women can support women. Well, Her Royal Highness, she held a symposium lately on gender equality, and then her husband turned up unbeknownst to her, and she said, well, it's actually crucial that men are part of this conversation. So why can't men be part of signing this letter then? The Windsors the Windsors in World War I. I can't see a UK without the royals. However, there is still a Jacobite heir. That is, Franz den Zweiter, Francis II of Bavaria, although he doesn't actually advance the claim himself. If you go by the Jacobite route, that's the one, because Prince Charlie died with no children born in wedlock. He had one daughter with his mistress, Maria Walkinshaw, and then his brother, Henry, became a cardinal, had no children. So there was a Belgian hanging around Edinburgh in the 90s, claiming he was descended from Bonnie Prince Charlie's natural daughter, which might have been true. But since his daughter was born outside of matrimony, she wouldn't have had any rights of inheritance. I'm not saying that's right, that's discriminatory, there we are. And in these times of equality, is that rule still acceptable? Supposing Prince Harry had a fling with whoever, and a child was born, should that child be excluded from the line of succession? 50% of children in this country are born outside of marriage these days. And in an age of equality, surely that's not acceptable. But then again, the whole notion of royalty strikes at the heart of equality. I mean, it really is the most delectable irony that Meghan Markle has made herself the princess of equality. Do you spot a slight contradiction in that? Let me say it again, the princess of equality. All right, so she's at the apex of a whole structure of inequality. Some people are higher status and have more money, and the people on minimum wage are subsidizing her to then go whining that the press is not tugging the forelock desperately enough, that we should all be kowtowing to her. So if we didn't know their opinions, they would be less objectionable. Okay, they're trying to help, they care. Now, comparing it to Prince William's pet issue of endangered species, there might be a handful of people who do want to see the rhinoceros wiped off the face of the earth, or say kill all elephants, or silverback gorillas, or the Sumatran tiger. But I think they're very, very few. It gets to the stage where you've got critical mass, where an opinion is so uncontroversial, so broadly accepted, that that's all right. If there's anything anywhere close to 50-50, that's not on, okay? That's too contentious, and then you expose the royal family to controversy. You'll draw some people closer to you, you'll enthuse them, but you'll turn other people off. So that's why they shouldn't identify themselves with controversial issues. Still head of the COV, I can't imagine a Catholic king or queen would cause a constitutional crisis even now. I don't think it would really. I believe I'm right in saying that, the Act of Succession still disbars Roman Catholics from being monarchs, but you can marry a Catholic now. When that Royal Titles Act came in 2011, under David Cameron, getting the 15 other Commonwealth realms, not republics, and the Commonwealth realms to agree, that was that. The monarch can marry a Catholic but must not be a Catholic. Maybe even that's discriminatory. So, I mean, surely the logical endpoint of this is simply to do away with monarchy. So, Meghan Markle, she wasn't stupid. She's, academically bright and everything else, and she wasn't a teenager. She knew what she was getting herself into, as she has vouchsafed. Her Britannic chums warned her off. Okay, this was their admonition, that, Prince Harry might be fantastic, you love him, but do not marry him because certain sections of the London press pack will savage you. And I actually don't think they're being that harsh. There we are. So sometimes they're rude, they're irreverent, and that's the price of living in a free society. If we're to have a free media, that includes the right to be unfair, the right to be spiteful, and so on. And but she's not saying, well, this is balanced by people who are her fervent supporters. She's got those who adore her. There aren't so many people rave about Prince William, for example. Since I went to school with William, do you think it's absurd someone so intellectually chimp can be at the top of society? Should it be based on competence? Well, I did know Prince William slightly, but I probably only met him on a dozen occasions. He's not that dim. He got some satisfactory A levels. He went to the University of St Andrews, read history of art. Did he get a 2-1? But he's not intellectually minded, never went to society meetings, hardly ever went to the theatre, did work that, a competent sportsman, liked painting a little bit. That's it. Well, he's obviously very good at water polo, but I didn't really know that at the time. You can train a chimp to go into space. Well, indeed you can. Okay, complete works of Shakespeare, infinite time and infinite monkeys. Well, this is not someone to be selected on the basis of scholarly aptitude and accomplishment. I think it's all right, actually. As I say, I'm a monarchist, and the thing is, once you know these people, you realise just how unimpressive they are. They're not necessarily gifted with splendid talents for monarchy. So if we knew less about them, we would help them. Meghan isn't the Sloaney type that you might have expected. Well, she grew up in a middle-class American family. She certainly aspired to be something like a Sloane as a social climber. Do you guess the Queen and Prince Charles think of Meghan's situation? Well, I think Prince Charles probably welcomed her because obviously made his son happy, stabilised who was a very troubled young man, who was experimenting with drugs in his youth, showed a lack of judgment wearing that swastika armband to the party, going to lap dancing bars, stripping off at Las Vegas, heavy drinking, as he said, struggled with mental illness. So he's made her happy, and that's why they're so protective of this woman, and that's that. And she's a bit of a modernizing force. Did he even subconsciously see shades of Diana, being compared to her, touchy-feely, a little bit controversial, doing things other ones wouldn't do? Insel Affen, the Deutsch call us. Island apes. Okay. Well, that's fine by me. You can call me an ape. I'm from an island to the west, though. Um, so the Queen, goodness, I would guess that she had reservations. Yeah, Harry called someone a packy in 2007. Well, that came to light, I remember, and other things. But he wouldn't be saying that now. But apparently the man he called that was okay with it. It was just a little bit foolish, a little bit distasteful. I'm not the kind of person who believes in absolutely flagellating someone for saying one word wrong. Although, curiously, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, when it comes to themselves, if someone says anything they don't like, well, they go apoplectic, hopping mad. So just ignore it. So, as I say, the royal family, they are all too human. Idols have feet of clay. Okay, they have the same emotions as anybody else. Why do you think the young royals now schooled in central London boarding school for them after? Probably yes. It was a joke among soldiers. He was a fellow soldier. Yeah, I mean, soldiers, you have to be a little bit tough. People were going to say unpleasant things to you. You're going to have to kill people. You could get killed. You can see your best mate shrieking in agony as he bleeds to death in front of you. So you can't be the sort of person who's going to go to pieces if someone says something that you don't like. I mean, boo-hoo, grow up. That's that. They're not sort of amazingly talented people, members of the royal family. They're not dreadful, but they are all too human if you meet them. And so we're meant to hold them in bewildered awe, but really they're not that astonishing. Okay, anything else to say about this? Again, is it bad? Possibly it's bad the politicians have done this because it's drawing her into a political controversy. Prince Philip said many amusing quips and very non-PC. Yeah, I wonder what he said about that woman, about Miss Markle when she got engaged to his grandson. So anyway, I thought it was a good thing. I thought maybe it would push back and show that racism was blown out of the water. I remember in the early 80s, one left-wing commentator, I don't recall who, said it would have been better if Prince Charles had married a black lady, and some people thought that was dreadful. So that's all I've got to say about Meghan Markle and this letter. And I think they probably shouldn't be going after the press. What are they going to do? The speculation, will they split up? I don't think so. Will they move abroad, renounce their titles? Just possibly. All this Harry and Meghan nonsense is a plan to deflect away from Prince Andrew and his paedophile friends. I hadn't thought of that possible construction on events, some sort of ulterior motive for it. And whenever bad news comes out about Prince Andrew, they're always saying, oh, he's going to get back together with his ex-wife, Fergie. They've been saying that one for 20 years. He was always known as Randy Andy, even in the early 90s. Princess Margaret had many Caribbean shenanigans. Yes, she used to like to go over there with Roddy Llewellyn and a few others. So Princess Margaret, she liked her men. They didn't have to be muscular, they didn't have to be tall, but they had to be well-groomed, creative, witty, arty types. If you look at the men she went for, going for this boy about half her age one time, okay? And so there was a lot of tart gossip about her in the press. Whereas had the genders been reversed, nobody would have thought about sort of a 45-year-old man going out with a 22-year-old woman. Anyway, there we are. I hope they learn from their mistakes, Her Royal Highness and Prince Harry. Even bring up gender equality, that's a bit contentious. It's like male privilege, does it exist or not? You might believe that it does, but don't you see that's a political question? And it would require probably legislative solutions, money to be spent here and there. Do you see what I mean? This is not something that virtually everybody can agree on. So I think she should play it safe and stay away from those contentious issues. I wonder that she doesn't allow her name to go forward for this coming parliamentary election. They want private lives, yet they want taxpayers' money. Well, you can't have it both ways, exactly. You live high on the hog, okay? When you're living in great opulence, courtesy of Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer, well, the price you pay is you will get a lot of press intrusion. And if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. She obviously craved the limelight. She was an actress, fine, but the press are going to follow you around. And no, they're not always going to say things which are lovely about you. So that they really don't help themselves. So I hope they wise up a little bit. And then Her Royal Highness, she called an MP and thanked her most warmly for the letter, which again, I wonder whether that's a sort of a breach of etiquette. Shouldn't be doing this because again, it might be embroiling her in a political controversy. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so I need obviously donations to keep this channel going. So please give most liberally to me on PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com, Patreon. Well said, George. It's a pity the Queen doesn't strip Meghan and Harry of their titles and privileges. Let's face the facts, they don't have any intention of respecting royal protocols. Okay, people are breaching from time to time, and Princess Diana, she used to kiss other men. Do you think Eton would sit at oversized campuses? No, Eton should not do so. There is only one Eton. I like that. It's unique. That's it. There is only one. Beware of cheap imitations. I think you lower yourself if you set up other minor overseas campuses. So back to the royal family. Yeah, I don't think she's going to renounce her titles anytime soon, or the marriage is cracking, or is she going to get divorced and actually that was a secret plan all along? Then she's got a sob story to tell and can finally get Hollywood roles that she would never otherwise command. A comment flashed up and I was saying something. I forgot what I was saying a minute ago. Do you remember? No. Anyway, so you can't have it both ways, Meghan. Yeah, I was saying about Princess Diana. Okay, she used to kiss other men just on the cheek in public. But up until that time, the protocol was that the Queen or princesses would never kiss a man other than their husband, would never dance with another man. Why? Because in case in the dance, people say, ooh, that looks a bit risque. She fancies him a bit too much. Or that kiss was a bit smoochy. And before you know it, tongues would wag. And the rumor would get going, she's having an affair with that guy. People put 2 and 2 together and make 5. And when she gave birth to a baby, people would say, that's not her husband's child. The father of that child is her paramour. And in an age before DNA tests, nobody could prove to the contrary. It was unfalsifiable. So they just didn't go there. But okay, times changed. Okay, that's the greatest tradition is change. The Queen, then she'd started dancing with people in the 60s and other things like that. So it changes. Or even about Sloane's, there's not really a royal protocol. It was a big moment in the 80s when Princess Diana first appeared in public wearing a pair of jeans. Up until that time, as a super posh person, could you wear jeans or not? Or was that a plebeian thing to wear? and HH are enraged that the public has rejected their treatment of others. Her railing dad was kicked aside like an old boot. He's ghosted her in a post not to serve her arms. Well, what does it say about Meghan that apart from her mother, her family appeared to loathe her and she's shunned them as embarrassing, dropped them like a hot potato? What does that reflect on her? Okay, maybe she's really reached out to her father. It could be that her father is a basket case. It could be that her sisters and brothers are dreadful. Right, maybe she's right to do so. She had a somewhat difficult upbringing, a little bit damaged. What makes her tick? What motivates her? I suppose she likes to be the centre of the attention. She likes to advocate for certain causes. She's got substance to her. There's hinterland, unlike Kate Middleton, who, as I've previously observed, had wants to be just admired for her appearance. Diana had many affairs. James Hewitt did it. Exactly. Prince Charles, he's done things I think are not on about the climate and also been hypocritical on it. So, you know, okay, they've all breached protocol, but I think the Duchess of Sussex is worse than others. And she's probably going to have to do more to win acceptance. Play it down, be uncontroversial. I can see Meghan writing a book. So, you know, the spotlight will move off them in a few years when Prince William's children are coming to their teenage years. Or let's say Princess Pushy, she used to get a caning in the media. Now they're no longer excoriating her. They've moved on to fresher meat. You don't treat your family like that. I don't care what the excuses are. Well, indeed. So, well, it was sad at that wedding of Meghan and Harry. Wasn't it pitiful? The dad couldn't come. Did you hear that bit? The happy couple, the dad was not able to make it. You know who I'm talking about? James Hewitt. There we are. Because actually, I went to a talk by James Hewitt way back in 2000, and he was asked, are you Prince Harry's father? And he said, I don't know, which I think is bull. I think he knows that he's not. Meghan would take cash like Fergie. Well, exactly, Fergie's disgraced herself. So, you know, Meghan Markle is not the only one to blot her copybook, but I think she would do well to keep her nose clean. From now on, steer clear of controversial issues and keep your head below the parapet and just carry out the royal duties, smile and wave. That's what you're paid for. Okay, so book lessons with me. You made that James Hewitt joke at Hammersmith. You did. I did. You see it. Well, come on. I had to recycle my gags. This is being environmentally friendly with the comedic content. So, girls and boys, book me for online lessons in history, politics, religious studies, English, literature, English as a foreign language, French, anything humanities really, for A-levels, GCSEs, International Baccalaureate. I'm a tour guide in London, so contact me to arrange that. Direct message on here. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. What else? Okay, signing off now. Thank you. Good night.